guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we will be reacting to 10 most hated people. Now if you like this video, comment down below and tell me which one you hated the most. Also give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And let's get into the video, and yeah.
Hi guys, my name's Danny Burr. You can follow me on Instagram down there. And you know what this is? This is Most Amazing Top 10. It's the channel where we take all kinds of weird and wonderful things from all around the world and turn them into a nice little top 10 list so you guys don't have to. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the top 10 most hated people of all time. Now, hating people isn't really a healthy thing to do, and I don't encourage you guys to do it, but sometimes people do such awful things there really isn't any other words left to use about them. Let's see if you guys agree now as we jump right into this with our number 10, which is Osama bin Laden. Bin Laden was the founder of Al-Qaeda, the terrorist organization behind the September 11, 2001 attack on the United States, which killed just under 3,000 people. Despite other Al-Qaeda attacks before and after this event, it was 9/11 that brought global hatred against him. In an open letter to America the following year, bin Laden included a number of reasons for the attacks, including America's support for Israel and suppressing Muslims across the globe. He was killed by US Special Forces in Pakistan on May the 2nd, 2011. But now we're going to move on to our number 9, guys, and we've got one of the most famous criminals in US history. It's Charles Manson. Charles Manson was the head of the Manson family, a cult from the Californian desert in the 1960s. They numbered around 100 people, many of them impressionable young girls, and they indulged in all manner of hallucinogenic drugs. It was these factors that made Manson able to convince them that he was Jesus and that a race war was coming. He persuaded 4 of his followers to kill people in Hollywood in brutal fashion by breaking into their homes and stabbing them to death, including the stabbing of a pregnant woman in her stomach. Manson was sentenced to life in prison for directing the cult murders, and that's where he remains to this day. He's hated by a lot of people, but he also fascinates a lot of people. So if you guys want to know more, I suggest you go and check out his parole videos. They're on YouTube, so if that kind of thing interests you, check them out. But we're going to move on to our number 8 now and talk about Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was the dictator of Iraq from 1979 until 2003. He was well known for his iron grip on the country and brutal treatment of anyone who he thought might oppose him. During his reign, he oversaw the killing of between 250,000 and 500,000 Iraqis. Saddam used secret police, torture, mass murder, rape, deportation, forced disappearances, assassinations, and even...
This geezer right here. He's a murderer. He is so, disgusting. I can't believe someone would do that.
Weapons to control Iraq and its people. He is hated throughout the world. His extermination against the Kurdish people living in northern Iraq. These are just a few things on the long list of crimes he committed. Saddam was found guilty of crimes against humanity by an Iraqi court and was hanged on the 30th of December 2006. Alright, for our next one, guys, we're going to be jumping way back in history. At number 7, we've got a guy called Vlad the Impaler. Vlad the Impaler ruled Romania for just 6 years between 1456 and 1462, but in that time he gained a reputation as one of the most brutal historical figures of all time. He got his name from his method of punishing criminals and enemies by impaling them on a wooden stake. Reports from the time said this was his favourite way to punish and kill people because it was specifically designed to prolong suffering. The stake will be driven through the anus and eventually emerge through the mouth, and witnesses said some people suffered like this for hours on end. Some historians think the death toll under his reign could have been as high as 100,000 people. So he was the guy that inspired the creation of Count Dracula, although now you've heard about Vlad the Impaler, I think you might agree with me that he's actually more terrifying. But now we're going to talk about our number 6, which is Joseph Mengele. Joseph Mengele was a doctor at the Nazi concentration camp of Auschwitz, where an estimated 1.1 million people were killed during the Holocaust. Although to call him a true doctor would be an insult to all the people he murdered. He was known as the Angel of Death and was appointed by Nazi leaders to be responsible for selecting victims to be killed in the gas chambers or be subjects of deadly human experiments. He tortured and experimented on countless numbers of people to pursue his own twisted fascination of racial genetics. He was also obsessed with twins and would sew them together or operate on them for reasons we may never know. Now, the documents that describe what Joseph Mengele actually did at that camp were destroyed after the war, so we might not actually know the full extent of the horrors, and he actually fled from the country and escaped imprisonment. But the hatred that people still feel for him will remain for a long time to come. But now we're going to move on to our number 5. We're going to talk about Francisco Franco. Franco became the dictator of Spain in 1936 after staging a military coup against the Spanish Republic when he was a general in the army. This started the Spanish Civil War. Franco had close ties with other fascist groups such as Nazi Germany and used his newfound support to wage this vicious war that tore the country apart. He oversaw a series of violent attacks on his enemies, including concentration camps, forced labour and executions that was known as the White Terror, and led to an estimated 200,000 to 400,000 deaths. After the Civil War ended, Franco continued to rule the country as head of state until his death in 1975, aged 82. Now, although Spain has moved on from that dark time in their history, there are still many people who harbour a deep hatred for what Franco did to their country. Now though, guys, we've reached number 4 on our list of most hated people of all time, and we're going to talk about Pol Pot. Pol Pot was the Prime Minister of Cambodia from 1975 to 1979. He wanted to create what he called a purified utopia, where all foreign influence would be extinguished and replaced with an extreme form of peasant communism. He did this by evacuating all of Cambodia's cities, including Phnom Penh, where 2 million people were evacuated into the countryside at gunpoint. He essentially enslaved his own country over those 4 years, and the death toll was simply astounding. Pol Pot killed an estimated 1 to 3 million people throughout his collective farm and forced labour projects. At the time, that was 25% of the entire population. 25% of the population was killed under his rule. I can't even get my head around that. But he was actually inspired by our number 3 on this list, which was Chairman Mao. Chairman Mao was the dictator of China from 1943 to 1976. He led the country's communist revolution and established the People's Republic of China as we know it today. But this did not come without a struggle. In 1957, Mao launched a campaign called the Great Leap Forward that aimed to industrialize China and make it self-reliant. However, it instead caused a great Chinese famine, resulting in the death of an estimated 18 to 45 million people. Historian Frank Dikötter put it simply by saying it motivated one of the most deadly mass killings in human history. Many within China and those who watch from around the world have a deep hatred for Mao for what they saw as a dictatorship that destroyed Chinese culture and led to the abuse and death of tens of millions of people. At number 2 now, guys, is a name that comes up in any conversation about the most evil or hated people in the world. It's Joseph Stalin. Stalin was the dictator of the USSR from 1929 until his death in 1953. His centralized form of communism transformed Russia from a country based on peasant farming to a modern industrialized nation. But for many, he will instead be remembered for the reign of terror he inflicted on millions of people. Stalin ruthlessly crushed anyone he saw as a threat with methods such as purges, labor camps, and even manufactured famines. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, records showed that Stalin was responsible for the death of 20 to 60 million people. He once said, "One death is a tragedy, 1 million is a statistic." Now, when you take all that into account, it's not hard to see why he's one of the most hated people of all time. So, who could possibly be hated more than that? Well, we've looked at the likes of Bin Laden, Joseph Mengele, and Saddam Hussein, but our number 1 is someone that some of you guys might have already guessed. It is Adolf Hitler. It says a lot about a person when they almost need no introduction for why they are the most hated person ever. Hitler was a dictator of Nazi Germany and a central figure when talking about the atrocity of the Holocaust. After rising to power during the 1930s, Hitler imposed his racially motivated ideology on those in Germany and then to other countries with the outbreak of World War II. This culminated most notably in the Holocaust, where at least 6 million Jewish people and other victims were killed in a mass genocide. There were also 19.3 million prisoners of war killed under his leadership, as well as 29 million German soldiers and civilians. Hitler is blamed for both the Holocaust and the start of World War II, and when you put it like that, it's not hard to see why a lot of people think he's the most hated person of all time. Well, guys, did you agree with the list? Do you know any better ones? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys learnt something.
Okay guys, that's the full video, and if you like this, give it a thumbs up and comment down below which one you hated the most. And yeah, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this, and bye bye.